Take 2, 3. I don't know. Well, we are having a rocky start. All right. Let's try this again. Couple deep breaths. Let's focus. Oh. Thank you for joining me today on Surviving the System. This week, I'm going to talk about a topic that's been really weighing on my mind the last couple of weeks. And as I sat down to prepare last night, my final notes for the show, it all kind of came together. There was this thought that was just out of reach. I couldn't quite place a finger on it, but it was there and it was nagging at me. You may have heard different versions of this quote that I'm about to speak. Different versions from different people. Everybody, I think, has a different spin on it. I'm not exactly sure where it originated from, but it's everywhere. I'm a fan of Zig Ziglar. When I grew up, my mother would have me listen to Zig Ziglar tapes, one specific tape, when I would go to sleep. And, at that time, she had just started to understand about the unconscious and how when you're sleeping, your conscious mind is asleep. So your unconscious mind is awake, and you can use that to program your unconscious while you're sleeping. And so I would listen to Zig Ziglar tape. And at the time, I used to be able to recite the whole first side. I always fell asleep, so I'd never flipped it over to the B side, but I could recite almost the whole first side of that tape because I listened to it so many times. Anyway, so I'm a big fan of Zig Ziglar. I love his work. I love his style. I love the message that he brings. And even though he's not with us anymore, I still follow him and his work on social media, and he's just as impactful now. He left a lasting legacy. He phrases this quote and says, "Success occurs when opportunity meets preparation." Simple, profound statement. A very simple equation. I'm a big fan of simplifying things, finding the pattern in it. And that to me is just an A plus B equals C. 1 plus 2 equals 3. Pretty simple. Success plus opportunity. Let me rephrase that. Preparation plus opportunity equals success. Cart before the horse there. So if you have preparation and you have an opportunity and you put the two together, it equals success. When I hear that statement, when I look at it that way, to me, what I picture in my mind is a chemist, the white lab coat technician. And he's got beakers and vials just all over the place. And he reaches for one and he kind of stops and he looks at it and thinks, "Oh, I'm not sure if this is the right one that I'm going to need." He pauses and ponders for a moment, reaches over and grabs the next one, looks at the two of those, gets that decisive look on his face, cautiously pours one into the other, and then poof, there's a puff of smoke, a flash of light, and eureka, success. That's what I picture in my mind. And if only it was that easy. Simple and easy are two completely different things. That's how I feel that it's portrayed primarily in personal development arena today. It's, oh, well, all you got to do is prepare yourself and the opportunity will come along and there you go, you're successful. There's so much more to it. Yes and no. But it's that space in between when you start the preparation till when the opportunity presents itself. That is the big missing piece that doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion. So we're going to talk about it. And before I do, a couple of quick housekeeping items. So first of all, if you've ever listened to the show before, you know that I can sometimes talk about some difficult topics and get into some darker areas, a bit more difficult to discuss. And so in order to help to keep the frequency and the vibration of the show high so that these topics don't ever drag us down, that we keep everything productive, that we keep everything vibrating at that higher frequency, I'm going to start off with a moment of gratitude. I start my day with gratitude, even if it's just as simple as waking up and thinking, oh, I'm grateful I'm here today. I am so grateful I have my kids. I am so grateful that I get to go to work today and earn a living for my family. Something very, very simple. I encourage all of my clients to do the same. I encourage you to do the same. And I'm going to take my own medicine and we're going to do that here. And I start the show with my gratitude for you and for you being here, allowing me to live out my purpose here to remind you of who you are and what you are truly capable of. So thank you so much for being here. I am grateful for this opportunity. Next item up. If you've had the chance to listen to my Swapcast with Andy from the Deep Share podcast, great show. You know, we kind of covered the gamut on a whole bunch of different topics. Andy's just getting started. I recommend go check out his podcast. Check him out on YouTube. Check him out wherever you hear podcasts. And of course, you can go listen to our Talk Together. It's up on my website. It is up on wherever I've got my podcast, wherever you listen to me on. Definitely take a listen to that episode. And I talk about a lot of things on the show. And when I get going, a lot of times I don't really stop to filter what comes out of my mind. Sometimes I try and I prepare. I have a notebook here in front of me where I write out my thoughts to the best of my ability, or at least some kind of an outline. And, you know, sometimes I will not express a feeling correctly or not find the right word. And in the case of talking with Andy, I miscategorized and misspoke about my mother. And she brought it to my attention. And I made a promise to her to let her know that I'll own up to it and I will apologize to her live on air here for the world to hear, because the categorization that I made on the show was in talking about Q and the QAnon movement. And, you know, when I was discussing the topic, I got the two mixed up. And so my mother has followed some of that, but not all of it. So when I expressed my frustration about the QAnon movement, she felt like she kind of got mixed up in there and that I was taking her for a fool, which is not the case at all. There is a lot of valid points that she has made for that. So I will publicly own up to stepping on someone's toes and to misspeaking, and again apologize for my miscategorization. So when you listen to that episode, please understand that I did not categorize her stance on the issue correctly. Now, preparation. Preparation is what I feel doesn't get talked about in personal development near enough to the level that I feel it needs to go to. Everybody talks about the things that you can do to prepare your body and to prepare your mind and to prepare your spirit. You know, if you've got a test coming up, you're going to prepare by cramming all the information into your head. You know, and it comes across in the personal development arena as, you know, prepare yourself by following these 3 morning routines. Do these 3 things. This is what successful millionaires do. Or just do these 5 exercises. These 5 exercises are what the most successful people on the planet do. We've studied them in just these 5 things. Or Just eat these 7 foods, these 7 superfoods that are going to supercharge your nutrition. And this is what the successful people do. Simple. It's simple, right? Yeah. I mean, that sounds so simple. Just do these 3 things in the morning, eat these foods, prepare this way, do these exercises. Simple. Not easy. I disagree. Preparation it's the hardest thing to do. There's just no way around it. Why? Why is it so difficult? You may have just thought to yourself or said out loud as you're listening to me. Because the preparation is the part where there is no opportunity in sight yet. And it comes way before the success. It means you're preparing yourself for an opportunity that you may not know how to recognize right now. You may not know what that opportunity looks like. You have no idea what that form of that opportunity is going to take. I stop and I think of where I'm at now and the preparation work that I did before I got back out, before I came home into the community. And I read so many different, quote unquote, self-help books. I took relationship classes. I took parenting classes. I took financial literacy classes. I took whatever I could to feed my mind and to feed my soul and to prepare myself that when I came back out, that I could just hit the ground running and not have that shock of coming out of the system and back into, quote unquote, real life. And so I would do things like when I worked in the library, we worked in shifts. He worked in the morning shift or the afternoon shift. It was just a couple hours in the morning, couple hours in the afternoon. Wednesday mornings, we were typically off because that was orientation day, and that's where they held orientation. Sometimes Saturday night, they would open us up if we had enough staff and people could come in and trade out books real quick. Wasn't open for long. Super easy job for the most part, at least for me, because I love books. I love reading. I love everything to do with books. And so when someone would come in and say, well, hey, I'm interested in this. Yeah, you know what? Absolutely. Here, I just read this book on this topic. This really helped me out. Try this one. And it was right up my alley. But I also knew that I was going to have a job when I came back out. My job when I came back out in the community was not going to be that easy. It was not just going to be a couple of hours in the morning or a couple hours in the afternoon here and there. If they decided to open up because we didn't have staff, sometimes we were closed, I would still get paid for it. I mean, that's how it worked. But that's not how real life works. So I prepared myself, and I prepared myself by working morning and evening. I worked both shifts. And I remember Jared one day, my cellie, Jared Prince, friend of the show, had him on a couple times, and he would say, dude, you don't work this shift. You don't have to come in. And I explained that same thing to him. I said, no, dude, I'm going to have to go back to work when I get out of here. And I'm not going to be able to just work for 2 hours and go back home and call it a day. I'm going to have to work the whole day. So I'm going to keep working the whole day while I'm in here. So I'm ready. And he was like, well, I've never thought about it. It's a really good idea. I was preparing myself for that. I had no idea what kind of job I was going to have. I didn't really know what to expect with the job market when I came back out. So I was preparing myself for a giant unknown black hole. I had no clue what it looked like. And you can sit down and you can visualize and you can use the law of attraction to manifest as much as you can. The fact of the matter is, sometimes when the universe tells you no, it's not taking something away from you and saying, I know that that's what you want, but I'm not going to give that to you because I've got something better for you. You don't even realize is going to be better until I give it to you. And you don't know what it is because you haven't seen it yet. You don't know. You're just waiting for it. So you're preparing for something you don't know ultimately how to prepare for. It's a big unknown, and that can be really confusing. That means also that as you're preparing for a big unknown, and you don't know what that opportunity is going to look like. You don't know when that opportunity is going to come. That's going to stir up all of the what ifs. That's going to stir up all of the limiting beliefs. They're all going to come roaring to life. And your mind is going to be screaming with them at you constantly. What are you doing? You're never going to find a job. Nobody's going to want to hire you with this record. Nobody's going to want to take you back after the past that you've got. You don't know what you're preparing yourself for. That is a breeding ground for self-doubt. And that's okay. It has to come up. You have to recognize what those limiting beliefs are in order for you to combat them and to counteract them. But that's the work. That's the hard part. It means you're going to be preparing in the total absence of an opportunity for an opportunity that could potentially come. It also means you're going to be preparing without any signs of success at that moment. Because if we're following this equation, if we're following this plan, preparation plus an opportunity equals success. So we're in preparation right now. We don't have the other part of the equation yet because the opportunity hasn't presented itself. Therefore, we don't have any success yet. We don't have anything that even resembles success at that moment. We just have preparation, and that's all we have. You're not going to see the end result until you combine both parts of that equation, put them together, poof, smoke, flash a light, eureka, I have success. So sticking back with that image of the chemist in the lab coat, let's make this a simple example. So just picture this. The same chemist has a vial of blue liquid, and it needs to be heated up to a specific temperature. Has to be heated up to just the right temperature in order for this to work. The molecules have to be moving faster. They can't be sitting still in that liquid state. They've got to be faster, moving faster and faster, almost to the point where they're going to evaporate, almost to the point where they're going to turn into steam and the molecules just scatter everywhere, scatter to the wind, so to speak. Once it reaches the right temperature, you've got a vial of blue liquid heated just to the perfect temperature. The molecules are moving at just the right speed now. Now he grabs for a vial of yellow liquid and begins to pour that into the blue. And eureka, we now have green. And if you're following me with this analogy, I know this is very simple, and hopefully you're tracking with me on this. You probably realize that the blue liquid there represents the preparation. Yellow would be the opportunity, and green would be the success. There's no real significance to the colors in my mind other than the fact that yellow plus blue makes green, and it was an easy image to put into your brain and for me to follow along with my simple brain as well. So why does the blue liquid need to be heated to a certain temperature? That's a great question. And the reason that I use this analogy, that I use this example with the blue liquid specifically needing to be heated up to a certain temperature, is because everything is energy. As I've talked about on the show before, everything is energy, as we now understand through quantum physics has explained all of this to us. Everything is made of energy. Because everything is made of energy, that also means that it's vibrating at a specific frequency. And higher vibrations are the more empowering vibrations. A higher frequency is a more empowering frequency. Those would be things like love, joy, compassion, gratitude. You need to be at a higher vibrations for this concoction to work. You can't be at a low vibration, expect the opportunity to come along and to have the success that you're hoping to have. Why doesn't that ever get mentioned when they recite this quote? Better yet, how? How the hell do I prepare myself for something that I can't see, that I don't know when it's coming, for success that I have nothing to look at this point, no tangible evidence that it's even there, because I don't even see this opportunity. I can't put the two together because I'm missing part of the equation. The more cynical part of me, as I look at different Facebook groups and different coaches, and the different products that they offer. I'm not going to name anyone in particular, because there's no one person that I'm singling out with this. It just seems to be kind of an industry standard. They're going to tell you the how, as long as you subscribe to their monthly newsletter for a small fee, or if you enroll for their one-on-one coaching, then they'll tell you all about it. Or if you attend their next live event, which is going to focus on more of the how to do everything that we just talked about in this live event, all for the low cost of whatever that number might be. And I don't mean to knock anyone or belittle anyone for asking a fee in return for a product or service. There's nothing wrong with that. We live in a value for value reality. If you want to ask a certain amount for a product or a service, go for it. I feel the line gets crossed, however, when information is purposely withheld that will tremendously benefit you or me or whoever is on the receiving end of this, just for the chance to do an upsell for the next product. When you become just a product, when you become just another dollar sign, when you become a pipeline for an individual or an organization to tap into, that's where I think the line gets crossed. So I think back to, a couple of examples of this. One example in particular that I remember, and it's not quite a sales example, but interestingly enough, it was still presented as a sales pitch. When I was growing up, I studied different religions quite a bit, mainly Christianity and different sects of Christianity. So the different sects being like fundamental, or Catholic, or Lutheranism, or then I started getting into things like identity Christianity, and Seventh-day Adventist. And Seventh-day Adventists, in my opinion, have something going on when it comes to interpreting prophecy in the Bible. I went to a couple seminars that were held through a local Seventh-day Adventist church here, and they were, I mean, just some of the most informative and eye-opening seminars I've ever come across. The way that they are able to use the scripture and the different prophecies that are put out there, like the beast of Revelation, or even the book of Daniel, when Daniel talks about the beast and the four beasts that are upon the earth, and how that interprets into the four different world ruling empires, and how they tie in the Bible prophecy with actual history and coordinate the events. And it all just, it was like, oh, that makes so much sense. I understand what you're talking about there. That's great. Using the Bible to interpret itself. Yeah, it was just, it was fascinating, and I loved it. And so I was at every one of these, every single one of these I was at, and I was soaking it up, and I was going home and I was studying it and learning more about it. And then towards the end, and they started to interpret the book of Revelations, talking about the beast of Revelations, and the 13 horns, and the whore of Babylon. And it was, it all made so much sense, in how they were able to tie it back to different prophecies throughout the Old Testament, and how it was a compilation, and how you could say, okay, this part in Revelation, do you see where it talks about this back there? And just putting the pieces together, it was just fascinating, and it answered so many questions that I had. So simple. And then we started talking about when the mansions, God has prepared a mansion, and here's the different measurements. And then all of a sudden it got to, when that happens, they teach that actual houses, mansions, are going to come down out of the heavens and land on earth. And that's going to be your mansion. And oh, look, there comes my mansion down. Everybody clear space. Here comes my mansion. Here we go. Perfect. Set it down. All right, here we go. Where are the keys? And their answer on that, when I challenged them and said, hold on, why are we interpreting everything in every other book all the way through up to the book of Revelations, all through the book of Revelations? You're telling me that everything in there is symbolic. It's not an actual beast with 13 horns. It's not an actual whore of Babylon that's riding the beast. Like, what, where did all of a sudden this change? And they said, oh, it's because it's exact measurements. Like, what? Well, 13 seems like a pretty exact number to me too. I don't see any wiggle room there. There's 13 horns. That's pretty specific, pretty exact. Nope, it was an exact number. So therefore, because it had actual measurements, it was an actual mansion that was going to come down with those specific measurements, and that was going to be your mansion. That was your reward. And I said, okay, I don't buy that, but we can disagree. And I've still learned a tremendous amount from you, and I still think that there's value here. And I was trying out a couple of their Saturday services. Seventh-day Adventists believe that the end of the week is Saturday, which, different topic for a different day. I agree. I don't necessarily think it's a point of contention one way or the other, whether we choose Saturday or Sunday to be the end of the week, but it is what it is. So one of their big pieces that they talk about is baptism. And I've studied baptism quite a bit from different teachers, different sects of Christianity. And, they really keep it very simple, where, when John the Baptist was baptizing people, he just did it down at the river. It doesn't have to be anything super fancy. Just find some water, submerge someone, bring them back out. It symbolizes, you dunk them in the water and bring them back up. That symbolizes going under the ground when Christ was buried and then resurrected. So you are arising as a new born again person because you have died, you've gone under, and you've risen and come back. That makes sense. Okay. It's They talk a lot about the different scriptures where it points out where it says, you have to be baptized. It's just part of the salvation process. Okay. You know what? And I understood it. I said, okay, it's worst case scenario. It's not going to hurt anything. It's not like this is something where they're asking me to sacrifice a puppy and like there's no coming back from that. It's baptism. The worst case scenario is I got dunked underwater and came back out and dried myself off for nothing. I mean, there was no downside to it. So the friend that I was attending these seminars with and had gone to a couple of their services, we went and talked to him, and I said, I understand what you're talking about, and I think it's important that I be baptized. And they said, okay, great. We've got to fill out this membership card then. And I said, hold on. What are you talking about? I didn't say I wanted to join the church yet. I said I wanted to be baptized. And they said, well, yeah, but being baptized means you're joining the body of Christ, and the church is the body of Christ. I said, oh, okay. So you're telling me that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is the only body of Christ? And they said, yeah. And I said, so wait a minute. In order for me to have this necessary piece to my salvation that you're talking about, you're not going to give it to me unless I signed that card saying I am now a member of your church. And they said, yeah. And they gave me some runaround about how, oh, well, you're going to be a newborn baby in Christ. And, you have to raise a baby. You can't just bring this new baby into the world and let it loose to wander all by itself. You have to guide it and teach it. I'm like, okay, what does that have to do with me signing your card? What does that have to do with anything there? And at the time I was really studying a lot about tax codes and social security numbers and such. And I knew that they wanted me to sign that card because it was additional government benefits for them to show, here's how many people we have in our membership, which qualifies for whatever grant, whatever discount, whatever else it could possibly be. Bottom line is it was about money. So I'm sitting and I even went so far as to say, okay, well, what if we provide our own source of water? Like, how about we just do that? We won't even use the church. Will you just come and baptize us outside of the church? Nope. Got to sign the card. So we went through these seminars talking about the prophecies, talking about interpreting them, talking about history, talking about salvation, talking about how baptism and being submerged in the water and coming back up, born as a new creature, that is a vital piece of your salvation. And the people that aren't baptized are risking not being saved. And we're not going to let you do it unless you sign this card so we can get more money. Needless to say, I didn't sign the card. I didn't get baptized by them because that was a sales pitch if I ever saw one. That had nothing to do about salvation. That had nothing to do about Jesus. That had nothing to do with your concern over my soul going to hell or heaven. You just wanted to add another name to your roster. That was a whole sales pitch. My personal opinion. So, fast forward years later, I met another pastor, Ted Weiland, out of the western part, the Sandhills in Nebraska. I think Scottsbluff is where he's at. And he kind of gave the same talk about baptism. And at the end, I said, I'd like to get baptized. And he was like, okay, well, I think this hotel has a pool. Let's go. And I was like, I don't need, he's like, no, let's go. Went and got baptized in the pool at the hotel where he was doing his seminar. done and done. It was a piece of cake. And I respect that man a tremendous amount more than I do the people that I encountered that run that Seventh-day Adventist church. That to me is what I feel a lot of the personal development arena has become, where they give you just enough information to wet your whistle. They give you just enough to say, holy crap, they're right. I need to prepare myself. If I don't prepare myself when the opportunity presents itself, I'm not going to be ready. If I want to have success, I have to prepare for that opportunity. I better get going. And then when you turn to them and you say, well, how do I prepare? They go, I'm teaching a class on that next week. Funny enough. Where's your credit card? Got a checkbook? I'll take cash too. You know what? I'm all set up now. It's the digital age. How about PayPal? I'll take Venmo. That's what I see it as now. And again, it's such a fine line because there's nothing wrong with asking for a fee. But when you build it up to such a hype where you say, you have to have this, you have to have this in order for the next piece of that puzzle. And then you say, okay, you're right. How do I get it? $10,000. You go, what? I don't have $10,000. Can't tell you. What just happened there? How did that just happen? I don't understand what's going on right now. And then you wind up with a lot of people who aren't on the more affluent end of society, or, speaking to my target audience, you have a lot of people who maybe are still trying to get their feet underneath them. People who are just working on living paycheck to paycheck, reestablishing themselves in their community, reestablishing themselves with relationships that maybe they've broken over years, potentially decades. And you're going to tell them that you're going to withhold information that could potentially change their lives because they're not going to pay you for it? No. So how do you prepare? And that, there's a lot to it. It's in fairness, it's not a simple answer for me to just sit here and say, oh, that's easy. Just do these 3 things, because there's a lot and each person is unique. What's going to work for me might not work for you. Eat these 7 different foods. You know what? What if this person over here next to me has a food allergy to one of those 7 things? Are you sure that they should be eating that one? I mean, I like it. It helps me, but that could kill them. That's got to be individual and unique to each person. I defer back to my mentor and coach, James Arthur Ray, when I think of this. And he calls it going 3 for 3. Going 3 for 3 means your thoughts, feelings, and actions are all in alignment. And if you think about it, how this correlates, it's very interesting too, how now science has told us that we don't just have one brain. We don't just have the brain that's up here in our head. We have 3 brains. We have our head brain. We have our heart brain. The heart has more neural connections than your brain does. And we have our gut brain. Thoughts, feelings, actions. So when you can get all 3 of your brains in alignment, your head, your heart, and your gut, when you can get all 3 of those in alignment, then you're going 3 for 3. So, and just think with me for a moment. Thoughts, feelings, actions. Have you ever worked at a job where logically, it made sense because it was good money and it paid your bills and you lived a comfortable life. It wasn't difficult because it fit your skill set really well. You could do the job without really even trying. It was a piece of cake, but your heart just wasn't in it because you didn't like it. It didn't fulfill your purpose. It didn't fill your soul. And sometimes you would have to get up in the morning and convince yourself to go into work because of that voice in the back of your head screaming, "What are you doing? You're meant for more than this." That right there is an example of when you're out of alignment. Your thoughts and your actions are lined up great, but your feelings aren't with it. And then you're out of disharmony. And I remember I worked at a local telecommunications company for 7 years. And at the beginning, it was fantastic. Like it was a great job. Loved it. I learned so much there, developed so much as a salesperson, as a business person, as a leader. I had leadership opportunities. It was fantastic. Loved it. Mm. And hold on. Woo. Computer almost died. Catch that, Joe. Edit it out. People that are watching this on YouTube and Odyssey, that's behind the scenes right there. All right. So I worked at this organization, and towards the end of it, it was miserable. I hated it. It was political. It was backstabbing. I constantly had to look over my shoulder to worry about how my actions were going to resonate with this department or whether my boss was going to try to get me fired for doing this again. It was horrible. I hated it. And at the time, we were doing these employee engagement surveys, and it was all propaganda. I know that now because all of a sudden it says, okay, it's time for our annual employee engagement survey. We better take the month leading up to that and hold these meetings about employee engagement and tell everybody how engaged we are and how great of a company we are so that when they fill that survey out, they'll remember it. And I was being asked to do these meetings with my team, but I hated my job. I hated it. And I will never forget. I woke up one day and I sat up and I said, "Oh God, I got to go to work today." And just that thought, immediately my stomach turned and I just threw everything up. And I puked for a good couple of days. Just the thought of going to work. That was it. I was done. That right there is not going 3 for 3. That was not 3 for 3. So how can we go 3 for 3? Taking care of your head brain, taking care of your heart brain, and taking care of your gut brain. Basic, simple things. Again, simple is not the same as easy. These are not easy. They're simple. Take care of your body, exercise, eating right, making sure you're eating proper foods and supplementation. Your gut brain, talking about the prebiotics and the probiotics and the bacteria that lives within your digestive system, and how when that bacteria gets out of alignment, when you don't have enough of the good bacteria, it throws the whole system out of whack, just completely out of whack. And have you ever heard anybody say, I just have this gut feeling? That's a legitimate thing. Listen to that, first of all. That's your gut. That's your gut brain saying something's not right. But when that gut is out of alignment and it's not taken care of properly, your gut brain does not function well. Your heart, I think back, speaking of scriptures, talking about the hardened heart, and things like don't let the sun set on your anger and how anger will harden your heart. And I've been down that road before where I've hardened my heart about relationships I've been in, people that I've been around. And it's not an empowering feeling at all. It's miserable. And when you're miserable, you look for other people who are just as miserable as you are so you can all feed off of your own misery and be comfortable together. It's like the Soul Asylum song. Misery loves company. So work on your heart. HeartMath Institute. If nobody's ever heard of that, just Google them up. The HeartMath Institute, or an institute that talks about a lot of the science behind the fact that your heart brain and how you can work on your heart. And keep in mind too, when we talk about your heart, we're not just talking about the physicality of it. That is an important part. So things like eating properly, again, exercising so that you are forcing your heart to increase its heartbeat for a while. The cardio that you talk about, expanding your cardio. When you put your body under stress enough times, it begins to react to it by adapting to it and get stronger. So then all of a sudden your heart is used to it and it can handle more stress and it can handle more cardio. It's definitely a physical part of it, but don't forget that spiritual part almost. Have you ever heard somebody say when they're asking for compassion from someone, they say, man, have a heart. Have a heart, man. Work on your heart. Your brain, your mind, your brain. Eating in the exercising is going to help your brain too. All of that does. Visualization, that helps your mind to focus on what it is that you're trying to do. Or in this particular case, it helps you to focus on that success that you're trying to reach to. The law of attraction, we've talked about it before, but that's what visualization does, is it employs the law of attraction. And when you visualize something, you can literally manifest it into your life. You hear stories about people who have used the law of attraction successfully, and they start with something as simple as, I'm going to manifest a cup of coffee. And they'll sit down and they'll visualize it. They'll use their mind, their brain, and they'll think, what does that coffee smell like? What does it feel like in my hands? What is it going to taste like? And they actually sit down and visualize to the point that they can feel that cup of coffee in their hands, touching their lips, in their mouth, going down their throat. And then they get a cup of coffee. Somebody comes up, just stranger, walks by. Hey, here's a cup of coffee, man. It's just stories time after time of simple things like that. If you can manifest a cup of coffee, imagine what else you can manifest. But you've got to train your brain to do that. Visualization, meditation. There are so many different benefits for it, but the one that I want to highlight on this particular one is meditation, especially mindfulness, is the process of training your brain to not be so scattered. So if you sit down to practice mindfulness meditation, a very simple way to do it is to just count your breaths in and out and to just clear your mind. Don't think of anything else. Just count the breaths as you breathe. So when you breathe in, it's one, you breathe out, it's two, and then you breathe in, it's three. And you just do that one, two, three, four. But what you'll find is we have been so conditioned to be distracted in our society, in our lives, that you'll go one, two, three. Oh crap. What am I going to do for dinner tomorrow? Oh, it reminds me, I gotta go to the store. Oh, okay. 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, that movie's coming out this weekend. Oh, I'm so excited to go see a movie again. I can't wait. 8, 9, 10, 11. Crap, where was I again? That's what the process feels like. And that's okay. That's what it's supposed to feel like. What you're doing is you're training your brain to come back into focus. Get off track, come back and focus. Get off track, come back and focus. And the more you do it, your brain has been trained to focus. And you can actually focus on one thing at a time for longer than just a 10 or 15 span of seconds. That is so vital for just life in general. We have no idea how distracted our brains are until you try to focus on something. Simple things like that. And there are so many different ways that you can do meditations. But overall, you need to focus on your mind. I'm going to use this quote because I think it's beautiful and I think it touches on exactly where we're at right now. This quote is from Eckhart Tolle. If your mind carries a heavy burden of the past, you will experience more of the same. The past perpetuates itself through lack of presence. The quality of your consciousness at this moment is what shapes the future. Clean up your unconscious mind. That is what it's talking about. Take back control of your unconscious mind. Clear out those limiting beliefs. Clear out all of those disempowering emotions that are going to hold you back from vibrating at that higher frequency, which is what we need for that reaction to happen when the opportunity presents itself. This is how you prepare. This is how you begin to prepare. This is how you prepare to prepare. That's the big part that's left out of this whole equation is you have to prepare to prepare. That's just how it is. It sounds stupid and it sounds redundant and it sounds really silly, but it is. You have to prepare yourself to prepare. You need to know what you're doing. And you have to be ready for the fact that it's going to take a while. So preparation. Being able to take these times when we feel like we have no opportunities, when we have no clear vision of success, it looks like we have absolutely nothing going on for us in our lives at this moment in time, and prepare like you do. If I can be of assistance on this journey, please feel free to reach out. You can reach me on my website, survivingthesystem.org. I do have a contact us page there, as well as a library of all of my past shows. Feel free to peruse those shows. Feel free to send me a message, say hello, ask for help, whatever it might be. I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/surviving the system. Twitter at STS the podcast. I'm more active on Twitter anymore, but I am on both, and I am on Messenger for either one. I am not difficult to reach at all. Send me a message through the website, send me a message through Twitter or Facebook. I'll get it and I'll reply within 24 hours to you, if not sooner, typically sooner. And if I can be of any assistance helping you to prepare, please let me know. I'm not going to upsell you. I'm not going to try to subscribe you to my next coaching event. That's not how I do business. That's not how I work. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And if you have an idea for a show, if you have been through the system and have a story that needs to be told, or if you know of someone or family member or friend that has a story that just it needs to be told, this is your platform as much as it is mine. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being here. I hope that I have provided you value. And as always, keep your head up. Don't let them get you.